Eve, it's so exciting to have you at least via Zoom with us.
I know. I would love to be there.
Yeah, it would have been wonderful. But anyway, at least the technique just gives us the possibility to talk about your very moving and very honest, wonderful film. And thank you for joining us. It must be evening right now in Australia,
Yes,
isn't it? Yeah,
Friday
okay.
evening.
Friday evening. Okay, Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you.
And yeah, let's just move to the first question. It is the first time you made a film about your own family story after around 40 years of being a multi-award winning filmmaker and always telling other people's stories. So how was it? Was it more difficult or even easier for the first to make your own, to tell your own story for the first time?
It's very difficult because you're in front of the camera and behind the camera. So, and it's, you know, filled with emotion. It's an emotional story. And when I started filming, I didn't know exactly where it was going to head or how it would look.
And was there somebody next to the camera when you were in front of the camera, when you were telling some very moving parts of the survival of your father, for example? You were telling it to the camera. Was there somebody?
No, I was actually looking to the camera, and to me, what I had in mind is I'm telling you who are looking back at me. The plan actually was to use the technique of have the interviewer on the screen, and we didn't get that set up, and I said, look, it's fine. I have in my mind that I'm telling the audience one by one.
Hmm. Now let's talk a bit about your parents. It seemed that they provided you with a very stable, happy childhood in the 50s in Australia. And after learning what they went through, both of them, I just wondered, how do you explain it, even as a psychologist, which is your second profession? How is it possible to put all these horrible experiences away and start a new life? I mean, it doesn't disappear, all these things they went through. How do you explain that?
I think it's a real compartmentalization of survival. And I think that a lot of people do it, for example, when they've had personal abuse. You know, it doesn't have to be a war. I mean, a war is an extreme, a murder is an extreme, but people have all kinds of abuse or things that have happened to them. And some are damaged for life and can't move forward, and others are able to somehow segment that trauma and actually then be able to move forward. And I think that both my parents had that incredible ability to not go backwards, but always to be in the present, having a good time and moving into the future. In fact, much more in the present.
And would you say that you inherited that from them?
Absolutely.
To look.
Absolutely. I know that when things are difficult, I don't get stuck on them. I absolutely deal with problems head on and move forward.
I think we could feel that in your film as well. You always went forward in order to find out the real story behind what has been told. In the film, we also see an excerpt of an interview your father gave in 1980 for Australian television, which was incredible. Was that story told in the family? Was it something you
No,
knew?
No, I knew very small little pieces. And interestingly, since I've made the film, I've actually discovered all the original footage made for that documentary was actually in our National Film and Sound Archive. So I'm currently cutting a whole new 4-part series based very much around that story, because it really is bigger than even I put in the film.
Wow. So it's a new project you're working on now, which
Yes,
resulted
yes,
from that film.
yes.
And then after your parents passed away, you found out that Felix, your wonderful father, was not your biological father. How did this change your perception of Felix, for example?
Um, it's really strange. Nothing changed. If anything, my relationship with my father, my mother, and my sister got stronger through making this film, and my connection to Judaism got a lot stronger. So it's been an amazing kind of journey. But I think that understanding Felix and delving more, I mean, he was a very gentle person who went through an extraordinary experience and obviously had to himself murder to survive.
It's interesting you are saying that your relationship to your Jewish origin became stronger, because you mentioned in the film that you always felt like this whole Jewish story doesn't really affect you on the same level as your sister, for example, who always felt Jewish and took it um, as something totally natural. And now you're saying, after you found out that your biological father, who it was, and that he was not Jewish, it strengthened your Jewish identity?
Absolutely. I think upbringing is so powerful. And it, it triggered in me just this incredible sense of family, community, horror that they'd gone through. And I don't know, it was, maybe as a teenager, I was kind of rebelling, not so much against Judaism, but against religion, because a lot of the time it was not a complaint about Judaism, it was a complaint about religion, because I felt like religion was like being a sheep. And that was my criticism of Judaism and all religions, and I feel quite differently now.
Interesting. And so you were never angry about your mother, for example, that she didn't tell you the real story, for example, after your father passed away or something? You never felt anger?
No, I searched for the anger because so many people asked me, wouldn't you be angry? But I studied science, and I guess at heart I'm a scientist, and this is this is evolution. I mean, I happen to be, the product of a man that my mother met by chance, and had she not done that, I wouldn't be here. So, that's one part of it. Am I angry that she didn't tell me is probably a different issue. And I totally understand, they were a different era. I think there was, shame and secrecy and cover up. And also, I really seriously don't think my mother wanted me to think that I had any other father but Felix. So therefore, she wasn't proud that Dixie was my father. She was proud that Felix was my father, and why destroy that?
What do you think? How would she react if she was alive and you would tell her that you found it out?
I think she would be horrified. She'd first try to go for the cover up, and I'd say, well, no, I've made a film. And then she would be drawn incredibly into her love of art and creation and, you know, achieving some great result. And she would be moved in the times because we would now be in a whole new era. And she would say, okay, so this is what happened. And she'd be interviewed. She'd love it. In the end, she'd hate it and then she'd love it.
And finally, she was a kind of filmmaker as well, with all this footage that she made. She loved documentary as well. We could feel that. So
she never ever edited her footage. The most she did, because she could never, in fact, all her collections of photos and footage, they were barely edited, except for, I'll tell you one exception. She always just stuck things together and kept everything. Like, she would keep blurry images of her grandchildren because she couldn't bear to remove them. And the only things I ever found edited were she'd cut herself out of photos if she didn't like how she looked.
I understand. Although she looks amazing. I'm sure
Yeah.
also in these pictures
Yeah.
she edited, she looked amazing. And your biological father, is he still alive? Dixie?
He's 96 now, and he works full time. In fact, I'm constantly saying to him, you know, it's dangerous now. You need to be at home. You need to be inside. Why should I be inside? I'm out working. So he's actually working full time. It's amazing, and he's very healthy.
And you are in a close relationship to him, I can understand.
Yes. Yeah.
Wonderful. And your half brothers and sisters?
I see
them all now?
No, I don't know them all because they're not all close with each other, and they're all over Australia. Literally,
and you are 10 altogether, right?
Yeah. Well, there's two half brothers, or two. They're all halves, but there are two step, a brother and a sister, and I know both of those. Interestingly, Dixie was closer to his not his biological children, which is always, he was a better father to them. Sorry, not so much closer, but a better father to them.
And your half-sister who contacted you the first, who looks so much similar to you, we can see it in the film as well. Are you in a good relationship with her as well? Or?
Yes. Yeah. No, we are in a good relationship, but she's, you know, quite distant from her father, and I think still is angry at her upbringing. And, you know, sometimes, you know, I didn't have that upbringing. I might also not be happy with him, but I have no issue because he didn't abandon me or abandon my mother. I had a great childhood.
Yeah. So now we come to my last question. The plan was that you come to Berlin, right? To the film festival. And now because of Corona, that didn't happen. How do you feel about the fact that your film now will be screened or shown in a German film festival with your background? Is it something today you would say something totally normal, natural, or is it still something special for you, different than being shown in London or Paris or wherever?
It is different and it is special. And for me, you know, we have a whole pretty much three generations now since what happened. And I think the way Germany embraced the past is really very special. And that's why Germany is where it is today. You know, it's interesting because I went to the Ukraine, as you know, where I filmed in that Sobieski castle, and there was a historian there. And, you know, she said to me, well, it didn't happen here. So there's, you know, it's interesting. The more, you know, Australia is only just starting to take on board what they did to our Indigenous population, and it's taking decades to actually own what has happened. And I think until we can all own what has happened in the past of our countries, we can't really move forward. But you can't blame individual people for the errors of a group in a particular time.
Thank you very much, Eve. And I hope that maybe with your next project, you will come to Berlin when all these spooky virus, we will overcome it. And I hope to meet you in person then.
Well, let's say yes, I will come, and I will finish this project thinking of you with that goal in mind, because it will take, let's give it a year.
Thank you very, very much, Eve. Have a wonderful evening.
My pleasure.
Goodbye. Bye-bye.
Bye.